Hello everyone and welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbale in Abuja. Let's start off tonight by telling you that the President Muhammadu Buhari, what he shared today in Sokoto State when he visited the state on an official assignment. President Buhari is asking security agencies not to spare any of the bandits or terrorists threatening the lives and property of innocent Nigerians. The president assured the Sultan of Sokoto that, quote, we will defeat forces of evil, end of quote. The president directed the nation's armed forces and other security agencies and services to deal decisively with any person or group undermining efforts at achieving sustainable peace, security, and stability in the country, assuring that the country will ultimately defeat the forces of evil. President Buhari, on their visits to Sokoto State, commissioned a cement plant by manufacturing company Bua Group. The president at the event inaugurated a 3 million metric tons per annum plant and 48 megawatt power plant. Take a listen to the president.
As you all know, one of the key economic pillars of our administration has been to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. This is necessary for job creation and indeed our economy and national security. In the last few weeks, I visited Ogun and Kaduna states, where I observed many private sector investments in action. And today, I'm here in Sokoto to commission this multi-billion naira project. It is therefore very clear for all to see that our policies are working.
President Muhammadu Buhari in Sokoto said today, there's so much to talk about tonight because we'll take you to Ekiti State. We'll get the aftermath and the failures after the PDP governorship primaries from yesterday. And then we will know what is happening on the ground in Ekiti State in respect of the APC governorship primaries. We have all of that covered for you. Stay with us. Plus, we have an eminent Nigerian that will be speaking with us on the state of the nation. All of this we have for you within the next hour or so. Stay with me, everyone. But first, let's check out your political roundup stories.
The Adamawa State chapter of the People's Democratic Party has thrown its weight behind former Vice President Atiku Abubakar and Adamawa State Governor Umaru Finchiri as the candidates to beat come 2023 general elections. This disclosure was made by the chairman of the PDP in Adamawa State, Tahir Shehu, at a stakeholders meeting held at the banquet hall of the Government House in Yola, where the timetable for the state local government election was unveiled. The House of Representatives is calling for investigation and prosecution of the Southeastern Security Outfit, Ebubeagu, over allegations of illegalities and unlawful possession of firearms. This follows a motion of urgent public importance raised by Representative Igariwe Ewo on the need to stop the deteriorating security situation in Ebonyi State being caused by the state government security outfit. According to the lawmaker, the group is not trained on how to use the weapons and is involved in illegalities.
We urge the Office of the National Security and Intelligence to investigate the status of the authorization of the various weapons.
The House of Representatives is accusing the Federal Minister of Foreign Affairs of disregarding the 2022 Appropriation Act. Following a motion raised by Representatives Kasimu Megari, the ministry is accused of directing Nigerian embassies to disregard a letter from the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, which drew their attention to the 2022 Appropriation Act, which allows embassies to spend monies directly appropriated for them without approval from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
They should hold on with implementing the law until they make further consultation with other agencies of government.
Mr. Godwin Obasike believes that the output of public servants in the state can only get better if their working conditions improve. Governor Basiki adds that the state government is currently renovating the old office buildings to ensure that each civil servant gets a personal table to work with. Governor Basiki was speaking after inspecting the Palm House Secretariat building and some block of offices in the new Secretariat complex, both in the state capital, Benin City.
By the end of March, in another 60 days or so, it should be ready for occupation.
Well, today the All Progressives Congress APC held its governorship primaries, but it came with its own drama. And 7 out of 8 of the governorship aspirants demanding for the suspension of the exercise. Some of the aspirants include Kaude Mojo, Demola Popola, Femi Bamishile, Bamdele Faparusi, Dayo Adeyeye, Opeyemi Bamdele, and Afalabi Oluwashola, all alleging protesting irregularities in the conduct of the party primaries. They all went to the party secretariat in Ekiti, with their supporters claiming the process as being manipulated to favor Abiodun Oyebanje, who has been labeled as Governor Kaude Fayemi's preferred choice. Take a listen to some of the aspirants who are not happy with the process.
We are not boycotting this election. Our prayer and our demand at this point is that the process needs to be halted so that a proper election committee can be set up both at the local government level and at the level of the 177 wards.
I woke up this morning to all this, finding out that results have been written in virtually all the wards. Mine is very simple. I'm a politician. I don't play games with people. If government has decided to do what it is they've done, they can kiss the party goodbye in the state. Simple as ABC. If they want to doubt what capacity we have in this state, let's go for it. It's June 18. Simple as ABC. We don't relent when we start. It's not a threat, it's a prophecy. And you all get to take that the way I've just said it.
The guidelines stipulates the process to follow. I came here within the stipulated time. I got accredited. When it was 12 o'clock, we queued and we voted. So as far as I'm concerned, it's a peaceful process and it's flawless.
All right, then you heard some of the aspirants in the race and some of their grievances. We'll get to hear one of the aspirants in the race on the matter. But let's touch base with what happened yesterday with the People's Democratic Party, PDP, where the immediate past chairman of the party in Ekiti State, Mr. Olabisi Kolawole, has emerged as a candidate of the party for the June 18 governorship election. He won with 671 votes out of 1,185 votes that are up for grabs. Mr. Kolawole, who is said to have had the support of former Governor Ayofauche, beat his closest rival, former Governor Shagoni, who polled 330 votes. 8 aspirants, including former Governor Ayodele Fauche's former deputy and PDP candidate in the 2018 election, Professor Olushola Eleka, participated in the delegate primary election that held in Ekiti, the Ekiti state capital. Earlier today, I spoke with Mr. Bisi Kolawole on the outcome of the yesterday governorship primary. Take a listen to the winner of the PDP governorship primary, who you can now call the PDP governorship candidate in Ekiti State. In you, how does your election come to you?
Well, it's just the grace of God and hard work, and don't forget the fact that I was endorsed by Governor Ayodele Fauche, who has his tentacles everywhere. And as a leader in the state, it was an advantage for me to have been endorsed by him. So with hard work, and we started the journey very early. We started the campaign very early. So we were already well established in virtually all the local governments before others joined. So it came the way it was because we worked very hard, and I had somebody who was projecting my image because of my own character too. He discovered, he knows that I have character, so he had to invest in me, his time, everything, to ensure that I emerged at primaries. And thank God it came the way you saw it yesterday.
But if you look at what happened yesterday, a lot of your opponents are very unhappy. Senator Abiodun Olujimi, for example, pulled out of the race. Now, your party is somewhat been torn apart by your margins. That's some kind of a disaster, isn't it?
Well, you are not getting it right, Sheung. I want to tell you now that when we were at the venue, as soon as the result was announced yesterday, my good brother and friend, Engineer Shegun, congratulated me. I visited his house today, though I didn't meet him at home. Professor Eleka called me. He was the first person to call me after leaving the venue yesterday. We discussed cordially, and he has even made a release to congratulate me and urge his supporters to work for me today. Wale Aribisala, we were together today. We visited him in his house. He entertained us, and he promised to invest everything in our campaign to ensure the emergence of a PDP candidate. That is Disikola Ole. I visited my dear brother Latif Ajijola today, and he was very receptive. He's my brother. We are very cordial. And the same thing with we just spoke about 30 minutes ago. Everybody, they're all happy with me. So I don't know how you came about what you just said. I'm very cordial with these people. Yes, Senator Biodun Olujimi pulled out. Well, you don't expect everybody to go into the final race. It's a decision to have done that. He's a serving senator. He must have considered some other things. But I don't think it was out of annoyance. He must have considered some other factors. Maybe the fact that he knew what will happen at the primary. It's better to, by style, just avoid being embarrassed at the venue, so to say. So,
but I mean, how do you then relate this scenario when a lot of the members of your those opponent believe that you are an imposed candidate by the former governor Ayodele Fayose?
Well, we conducted primaries, beamed all over, for everybody to see. If that is imposition, well, I think everybody will want to be imposed. It was a free and fair process conducted by a very credible and fair person, in person of His Excellency Governor Udom of Akwa Ibom, and some other very important, credible members of the committee. They were there and they conducted it free and fair. Everybody knew the process was very free, and the results was made very transparent. Everybody saw
because because one of the biggest fears for some people is one of the biggest fear for some of your colleagues is the fact that you were imposed by Governor Fayose, according to them, and that is going to remotely control you should you win the election. That's the biggest fear. Fear that they have.
Two questions you have just put across to me. Well, I wasn't imposed. He endorsed me. Endorsement means support. He hadn't the power to impose me on everybody. The National Working Committee was involved in what we did. They set up a committee. The committee came to conduct a free and fair election, which was seen by everybody all over the world. I've received calls from all over the world. The counting, the voting process, the counting, the accreditation, everything was made open. So I don't think you can call that imposition. I was endorsed. I was supported. They were all seeking for his endorsement too. But I was lucky to have secured that. And you see, it's only when you don't have such that you turn into another thing. And the aspect of him remote controlling me, he knows I have character. The governor is the governor. Nobody can remotely control anybody that is in control of the situation. So I don't subscribe to that. It's just is a way of just is a very derogatory way of describing the situation. But that is not the true situation. Governor Ayodele Fayose has been a two-term governor. So what has he to collect from the government house? He has only supported me because he knows about my popularity, about the fact that I have all the experiences. I've experienced the legislative arm. I've experienced the executive arm. I've even served at the grassroots as a supervisor years back. So I've been the party chairman. I was a member of the BOT. Those were the qualities he saw in me before endorsing me.
So what did you trade off in place of his support? What did you promise him? That he gave you his support.
I didn't have to promise him. I think all he is interested in is establishing his leadership of the party in the state. It's not a matter of trading up anything. He's a leader, and he needed to assert himself as our leader in Ekiti, which he has successfully done.
I mean, because we've seen a lot of issues with those who are being supported, so call them godfathers, if that's a good way to refer to Governor Ayodele Fayose and who he is to you right now. But the question is that, I mean, are you one of those who will promise that you perhaps will not betray him, if that's the word to describe those that are falling out with their political godfathers?
Well, I don't think that can happen in my situation. I'm not, there is nothing too serious in being a governor as far as I'm concerned. I've seen it all. I've never been a governor, but being a governor cannot make one misbehave. I don't have such character. I don't have, if you trace my antecedents, you cannot find that in me. So the matter, some cases of people betraying their godfathers or friends or their promoters, that cannot happen in my situation. I want to assure you.
All right.
We're going to start the journey very soon, and we will enjoy cordial relationship. Nothing will warrant such. I believe there is no 99.9% loyalty. One should be 100% loyal. Loyalty is no stupidity. Thank you.
On a final note, the ruling APC in Ekiti State has had their own primaries today. I mean, are you confident about a race against the ruling APC? They beat your party the last time.
Yeah. Well, so what happened the last time is well known to everybody. But the situation now is different. Everybody is fed up with the government of APC from A to Z. And I want to assure you, in Ekiti State, people are so disgruntled, people are so sad, people are just waiting for the candidate of PDP, people are just urging us to come together to beat them because they are ready to chase them out of the government as soon as Governor Fayemi ends his term. We pray he ends very well, but this election cannot go to them. And don't forget the fact that it is a PDP state any day. They were twisted the other time, probably because of the hard stance of Governor Ayodele Fayose then, but it's no longer in government, and we are going to throw the thing to the people's court, and people will reject them at the post, I assure you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Bisif Kolawole, candidate of the PDP in Ekiti State. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.
All right, you've heard him, the candidate of the PDP for the Ekiti governorship contest. But today, the National Working Committee of the PDP has constituted a 25-man governorship appeal panel to investigate complaints and appeals arising from the recently conducted Ekiti State governorship primaries in the state. A statement by the PDP National Organizing Secretary, Mr. Umar Bature, notes that the appeal panel will start sitting on Friday, January the 28th, 2022 in Abuja. The panel is expected to address all complaints that trailed the PDP primaries in the state with the hope of reconciling aggrieved members ahead of the state governorship election in June this year. A panel of 25, which has some members of the National Working Committee and the PDP Board of Trustees, will be chaired by the PDP National Chairman, Senator Yocha Ayu. Yeah, you've heard the latest in respect of Ekiti PDP governorship primaries. Let's go back to the APC. Well, the APC is adopting the direct primary mode for the exercise. You understand that some of the aspirants are on their way to Abuja, and we tried as much as possible to reach out to Mr. Abiodun Yebanji, who is touted as the anointed candidate of Governor Kayode Fayemi, and also we're trying to also reach out to Senator Dayo Adeyeye, but we understand that Senator Adeyeye is with us on the program tonight. Let's get to hear him, albeit he's on the telephone with us. We may not be able to see him, but let's speak with him for a few minutes now. Thank you so much, Senator Adeyeye, for joining us tonight. What happened today? You're one of those who is not happy with the exercise. What went wrong from your own standpoint?
Hello, I'm not hearing you.
Senator, if you can hear me, I can hear you. And I guess our viewers can also hear you loud and clear. And let me put the question again, if you can hear me this time around. what happened today, at least from your own standpoint, what went wrong? You're one of those who are not happy with who's not happy with the exercise of today.
What happened today was a farce, a complete mockery of the democratic process. It was a shame, honestly, because the entire democratic system was subverted by the pomposity of those who are drunk with power. Now, what happened was that, if we had a direct primary, we were supposed to have a direct primary, let me say, because nothing happened today, really. Those who are already selected to go and conduct the primaries in the various wards as returning officers, and at the local government level as chairman and secretary, were all 100% of them were supporters of a particular kind aspirant, the one anointed by the governor. And we raise objections to this. You cannot referee. You cannot have a situation in which two teams are playing a football match, for example, and all the match officials are drunk on one side. That would be, I think that would be a weak joke. So, we complained.
But Senator, I presume that the exercise was clearly described to all the aspirants. All the procedures were clearly given to everyone, isn't it? And everyone that is supposed to superintend the exercise, they are clearly giving their names to the aspirant. Did this happen?
When we saw the names, when we met in the afternoon yesterday, we didn't know those really. The guy said 3 per ward. But when the names came out, when we saw the names, we discovered that all of them, 100%, are supporters of a particular aspirant, the one anointed by the governor. We discovered that, and of course,
who is this aspirant? Who is this aspirant? Who is the aspirant, if you may clarify?
Of course, the ones that are anointed by Kao Define. You know that all the people are either government officials or those who are in his campaign team. In fact, many of them, if you see the pictures, video evidence we have, many of them are accompanying him to Abuja to collect form. They are doing campaigning with him. They are part of his campaign organization. And these are the people you have selected to go and conduct congresses at the world level. We complained to the governor of Jigawa state who came to conduct the elections. He gave us an appointment to see him by 9 this morning. And so to our greatest surprise, by the time we arrived at the party secretariat for the meeting, we received a very terse message from the secretary of the panel, Honorable Tito, that the governor was not ready to meet us again because he heard that we have made some statements, maybe on social media, to criticize the process, to ventilate our grievances about the process, and for that reason, he was not going to see us. I think that was an extreme display of power, an arrogance of power. I didn't expect it from me.
Senator, some of you insisted that the exercise should not continue.
Or what?
You insisted that due process should be followed. But the exercise went
I'm not
ahead
hearing you. I'm not hearing you.
What is now left to you as an option in this situation?
Well, the option is, number one, there is an appeal panel. We make our case known to the appeal panel. And of course, if we are not satisfied with the process, we have the freedom to take necessary political steps, even legal steps as well.
Okay, so I understand that some of your colleagues are already in Abuja trying to protest to the national secretariat of the party. Are you following suit, or are you seeking redress from the party, or you're going to court? Is there any of these the option?
All the options are on the table. All the options are open to us. I mean, I've not joined them to go to Abuja. I am here to talk to my people here and hold meetings here and there with them. But all the options are on the table. We hope the appeal panel will do the needful by upholding the whole fact they call an election. And maybe organizing a new one, because that's the only solution, really. What it took place today was never an election. It was a shame, really, a disgrace. And it's totally unacceptable.
What happened, on a final note, Senator, what has happened? I understand that you had a close relationship with Governor Fayemi. Have you spoken with him? What really happened? If you have this grievance about some of these allegations that you have made.
I don't have a close relationship with Dr. Fayemi. Point of correction, I don't have any close relationship with him. I once worked for him to win the election in 2018. But the events that followed are not one that are palatable anyway. So you cannot say that I have a good relationship with Dr. Fayemi. I don't. And I don't have to have a good relationship with him anyway. I did my best to work for his election, but I was dealt a bad blow from it. So I don't. In recent times, we have not talked. Not that if we see we won't talk, we'll talk, of course. We will exchange greetings, but that cannot be described as a close relationship.
All right, thank you so much, Senator Dayo Adeyeye, one of the governorship aspirants in the Ekiti APC governorship primaries. Thank you so very much for talking to us tonight. Let's take a break, everyone. And when we return, a prominent former banker, economist, Mr. Mohammed Ayatuddin, will be joining me on the program. He recently joined the PDP, and we shall be getting his views on the state of the nation. Join us again, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us just in a moment as we hope to be able to connect with Mr. Mohammed Ayatuddin, a prominent consummate businessman and former banker who recently joined the People's Democratic Party, hoping to speak with him on the state of the nation. So let's get to find out what exactly is happening with the issue of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. This is something that civil society organizations have been speaking about. One of those who is the front line of that conversation is Mr. Samson Itodo, who is the Executive Director of YEGA Africa. He joins us now on the program. Thank you so much, Mr. Itodo, for joining us tonight on the program. Now, we've seen the position of the harmonization of both chambers of the National Assembly. Now, consensus has been added into the conversation. Let me get your view first and foremost. That was not on the bill before now, but is now being added to the bill.
Well, Shewa, the same way you are surprised, that's how we are surprised when the Senate introduced that particular proposal last week and voted for that particular proposal. But last week, the House didn't vote for consensus. But somehow, this week, they seem to have built consensus amongst themselves and passed the bill to include consensus as a procedure for nomination of candidates. You recall last week, civil society did express our disaffection and rejected that particular proposal for three reasons. One, that it will hamper fair competition in the candidate selection process. And given the power asymmetries within political parties and the weak nature of our political parties, we are concerned that people like women and youth and persons with disability and people who don't have the blessings of godfathers within political parties will be excluded from the candidate selection process. And we wish that the National Assembly limited itself, to the procedure of direct and indirect primaries as provided in the extant electoral law. But that they've, in their wisdom, included consensus because of the interview you granted, the question you asked the president. If you recall, in the president's correspondence to the National Assembly, he never mentioned consensus. So he only mentioned consensus when you channeled interview and you, in particular, interviewed him. But the National Assembly has included it. One of the things that they also did was this week, before they passed the bill, they try to make expanse provisions to explain the procedure for arriving at a consensus. And what the bill says is that cleared aspirants will have to give consent in writing that they are withdrawing from the race and they, are accepting a particular candidate. And in the event a party, in the event all the aspirants do not consent or the cleared aspirants do not consent, then the party would have to conduct direct or indirect primaries. Now, shall the proviso that only cleared aspirants is where we see an opportunity for manipulation. You know that within our political parties, like the case in Edo State and in other cases where screening committees do not uphold, transparency, accountability, and justice in the consideration or screening of aspirants. And we think that if that particular aspect of the bill is not tightened, it might lead to exclusion. But one positive, development is the clause in clause 84. They introduced sub 3, and sub 3 is to the effect that parties are now restricted to upholding the qualification criteria in the 1999 Constitution as amended in their nomination of candidates. So parties can no longer introduce other criteria either to disqualify candidates or to subject candidates to some form of scrutiny. We think that's a progressive proposal in the bill, even though it's not new because that provision was in the bill passed by the 8th National Assembly. But we're glad that, the National Assembly, in its wisdom, saw that as a safeguard and introduced it in clause 84. What we also know is that between yesterday and today, the National Assembly has been cleaning up the document and looking at those drafting errors and cross-referencing gaps that civil society highlighted in the bill. And we expect that the bill will go to the president in a couple of days. And we do hope that when it gets to the president, he would assent to the bill without any further delay because we are already running out of time. The electoral bill is clear on the timelines for the issuance of notices for elections. And INEC is required to issue notice for elections 1 year before the date of an election. And in this case, in the next 3 weeks, we expect notice of election if the bill is passed. So we urge the president, once he receives this bill, without further delay, he should assent it because the National Assembly seems to have heeded his call.
For some people who might be wondering what Samson was talking about, the president made that promise that if those areas are fine-tuned and sent back to him, he will assent to it. It might be new to some people, for those who are not. But for those who are not new to that interview, that it's good. But for those who are new to it, let me remind you of what the president said in respect of signing it when it's returned to him. Take a listen to the president. Mr. President, should the National Assembly come back with the bill and they edit out what you don't like, would this sign it?
I don't think I told them what I don't like. All I said, there should be options. We must not insist that it has to be direct. It should be consensus and indirect.
So if they do that, would you sign it?
Yes, I will. I will sign. All I would like is that there should be options. You can't dictate to people, and you said you are doing democracy. Allow them, other options, so that they can make a choice.
All right, you're now reminded of what the president said, that he will sign it. Now, the question is, the consensus the president mentioned is not being transported into the electoral bill, but it was just mentioned from the Senate. But when the harmonization came, now it's been detailed and analyzed, and there are subsections to the consensus clause, which means that if you come together, all parties on the table must agree. If there is a dissenting voice amongst the group in the party, you have to go to either direct or indirect primaries. That is now clearly stated in the draft that has been sent to the president. I understand that we're since being joined by Mr. Daniel Buala, a lawyer who has joined us virtually from London. Thank you so much, Mr. Buala, for joining us. Give us your take on the development in relation to the harmonized version of the bill passed by the National Assembly. It looks so much like something that they acted fast on. What's your view?
Because all parties are willing and are desirous of having a very good election in 2023. And the harmonized version is simply a reflection of what exists in the constitution of both APC and PDP, which is the recognition of direct primaries, indirect primaries, and consensus. And if you recall, when the first bill was proposed, which was rejected by the president, the wisdom behind that was to be able to give the political party the option to exercise the rights that is enshrined in their respective parties. So this is what we have: consensus, direct primaries, and indirect primaries. But it is pertinent to note that depending on the political party in APC, consensus as provided in our constitution must also be by the reflection of hands. So for example, if stakeholders come together and agree that consensus is going to be the mode of electing the leaders, once the parties have agreed to it, the constitution says there must be a show of hand to reflect that it is the consensus of the people. And once you cannot find consensus, then they will have to then revert to the other options, which is to conduct direct primaries or indirect primaries.
Someone who advised the Deputy Senate President, there's been a lot of clamor. The National Assembly was particularly on the spot on this one. And the kind of response that came from Nigerians, I'm not sure we've seen this kind of clamor on any kind of bill in recent past. The Senate yielding to the voice of the president to add consensus, which is, before now, is not in that bill. And those who have criticized the National Assembly in their relationship with the executive, how do you react to that kind of scenario where the National Assembly is saying, as taking everything the executive brings to it, hook, line, and sinker?
Well, there are debates and there are argument and perspective to this issue. But the whole essence of the doctrine of separation of power is not so that the arms of government will fight each other. It's so that they will checkmate each other. It means where a particular arm of government is acting ultra vires or inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution, the other arm is there to checkmate it. But that is not to suggest that the two arms of government cannot work together, especially when they find a common ground as supported by law. Now, when the National Assembly passed the previous amendment, which only provides for direct primaries, it's like a close-ended option to electing leaders. The president did not reject by saying, I don't like it, just go and do what I like. He gave his reasons. And that's the whole gamut of, the process of passing into law bills, that he has a right to assent, to reject, or to state his reason. In this case, he stated the reason. And the reason was that he felt that looking at the constitution of political parties, plethora of decisions of even the Supreme Court, that the affairs of political parties should not be dictated by external forces. And so he now wrote back to them, and the National Assembly decided to yield to the reason as advanced by the president. Now, in the 8th Assembly, because of political reasons, if it were, let's say, if it were the 8th Assembly, they may not accept it because there is this issue of grandstanding. But in this case, they yielded to the voice of reason. It is like the PIA that we're talking about. The president also yielded to the yearnings of the Nigerian people. That is how democracy should be. It is not that you take a position and the position is sacrosanct. You won't listen to any voice of reason. And now, in the constitutional review, for example, privileged to serve as one of the consultants, we have had so many sessions looking at the alterations to the constitution. We receive ideas. If you see the memoranda of Nigerians from all across the country, it will tell you that the Nigerian people are yearning for a constitution that will move this country forward. So what I'm saying in essence is that although the arms of government checkmate each other, but it is not designed for them to fight each other. However, where either of the arm acts ultra vires or inconsistent with the provision of the Constitution, then the other arm has the power by law to checkmate that.
Thank you so much, indeed, Mr. Daniel Bwala and Mr. Samson Itodo. We've been having some technical issues connecting with Mr. Muhammad Ayatudin, who I understand now is now with us. He's a consummate professional, former banker, a former group managing director and chief executive officer as far back as in 1984, who after serving the Federal Savings Bank for 15 years left his position as chairman and CEO in 2004 to establish Alpine Group headquartered in Lagos. Alpine is an investment holding company focused on intervention in high-growth service sectors of the Nigerian economy through direct investment in projects that have a high impact on people's lives. Alhaji Ayatudin's consumer passion for Nigeria's development and progress is amply reflected in his deep commitment to important national assignments over the last 30 years. He was a core member of the Vision 2010 committee that drafted a social and economic blueprint for Nigeria's development in the mid-1990s. He was also a chairman of the Nigeria Economic Summit Group. Mr. Ayatudin joins us from Lagos. Thank you so much, and it's good to see you. Apologies, we've had these terrible technical connection, but now that we have you, let's get straight to it. After so many years as a professional in the corporate world, why politics? Is it kind of a retirement plan for you?
Shane, very good to talk to you. First and foremost, the advertorial that I saw on the screen indicated that I'm a PDP gubernatorial aspirant for Borno State. That is not true. I'm just joining the PDP as a member, and I haven't told anybody that I'm aspiring for any office. So let's get that straight. Secondly, I've had extensive experience in the corporate sector, having led the turnaround of two major corporate institutions in this country. And apart from that, I've also been very deeply involved in a number of other extracurricular assignments in both the public sector, civil society, and the private sector. I have reflected on my life very, very carefully. And there are abundant lessons that I've learned in relation to this country. First and foremost, I've clearly come to recognize and accept and hold the deep-seated belief that this nation cannot go forward without unleashing the enormous amount of energy and creativity of the Nigerian people. This is best done through the private sector by giving the private sector a host of incentives, by getting the public sector to embrace the private sector, create an enabling environment so that we can grow the nation's output, substantially increase economic growth, bring about prosperity to the Nigerian people, deal with the issues of poverty, deal with issues of insecurity, and deal with all other things that affect the quality of life of Nigerians, and therefore place Nigeria as a very strong competitor, not only in Africa but around the world. As a very strong nation that is globally competitive and that has a very resilient and robust economy. In the course of my service in this country,
that makes me now want to ask why the choice of the People's Democratic Party? You're joining partisan politics, then you've chosen PDP. And I'm saying this because, I mean, you've been part of advisory committees in the Yaradua, in the Jonathan era. You've also in the transition of the Buhari government. But why the choice of PDP?
Well, first and foremost, I think there are only two political parties in this country that you can consider large with a very vast footprint. So it's either the APC or the PDP. Number one, PDP has run this country for a period of 16 years. In the process of administering the affairs of this country, it has actually done a pretty good job between 1999 and 2007, 2008 in terms of the kind of programs that it implemented, the energy, the dynamism, and the fact that they actually brought about a large program of privatization, commercialization, and liberalization. They made some missteps, obviously, along the way, and having been out in the cold for a period of 6 years, I have the faith and belief that lessons have been learned. The other very important point is the fact that over the last 6 years, it is clear since then that I'm fairly impressed with the conduct of the elections within the PDP over the last 2 to 3 months, but more importantly, the kind of leadership that is now taking charge of the PDP, I think is a cause for celebration in the name of Dr. Iocha Ayu. So those are some of the reasons why I'm joining the PDP. And the last reason, obviously, is the fact that I believe that the PDP has a large funnel for taking in ideas.
I'm curious to also ask you, because I know that you are perceived as very close to power, to the extent that you are highly considered for the role of the Chief of Staff to President Muhammadu Buhari after Mr. Abba Kyari died. What really caused the fallout?
There has never been a fallout between me and the president or his very close associates. It's a relationship that actually goes back many decades. I respect and honor that relationship. Second point to make, Sean, is the fact that the issue of chief of staff or many other positions in government have been speculated for a very long period of time, not only under this administration, but also under other administrations. It's purely in the speculative realm, and I know that even the mainstream media had carried it. But in the first place, it wasn't government that brought us together. It is other deep-seated relationships based on mutual respect.
I wish unfortunate technical issues could not allow us to connect with you early, but it's good to have a preliminary conversation with you. But because of your personality experience over the years in economy and now your new move into politics, I guess we need to reschedule our conversation some other time to be able to talk about this, because we need to close, and so we are totally out of time. But it's good to see you again, Mr. Mohammed Ayatuddin. Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Sean. I look forward to it. Bye-bye.
All right, that's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimbale. Bye for now.